Okay, microphone working. Yeah. Something very interesting I was looking at because eventually, once the room's done, it's always when something's done, I'll get to something lately, and it's just that's frustrating for me. But I'll get to the ecosystem thing once this room is done. I've got to wait a little bit till payday to really get some more flooring, and the next payday might finish or come close to finishing the flooring. We'll see. I have to be good in between, not to spend too much, so that I could spend it on the flooring later. Regardless, what was took my interest in the ecosystem arena, people keeping shrimp and so on. A the type of shrimp that I want to keep is should be relatively easy to breed, providing the babies are not eaten by other occupants. And what I want to keep as other occupants is probably going to mitigate that to a large degree anyway, because those very tiny creatures as well, comparative. The bigger the fish, more likely that it's going to eat a baby shrimp or whatever in that kind of scenario. There's all different types of shrimp species that are kept in the hobbyist aquatic hobby arena, tropical freshwater. But the key word there is freshwater. Amano shrimp have young that in the wild that are kind of in a stream that are washed to the where the ocean starts to begin, so they want brackish water when not the adults but the babies need brackish water when they're a larvae. They go through a larval stage. Unlike neocardina shrimp, once the eggs hatch out, they're tiny replicas of the adults. They don't go through a larval stage. They probably do within the egg, but that's what's the egg? That's what the egg is for, to protect it till it's ready, right? So they require brackish water, and what people have said is they're notoriously difficult to breed in captivity because you've got to replicate those conditions and bring in some brackish water and make sure the water parameters are right and so on. I did keep Amano shrimp some years ago, and I was breeding live bearers and selling them on. That was very easy. Swordtails and platies are very easy to breed. There was a lot of them getting buried, and as in berries. It's a term used when a shrimp is pregnant with eggs, and over time they kept getting buried, and then you see them without eggs, and they see them with, and they was happy to have breeding behaviour. But not once did I see a baby Amano shrimp being produced because I didn't have the conditions for the brackish water. It was all freshwater tank. However, some people are reporting within a freshwater aquarium, um, they're breeding them at a very, very low scale, minimal. This could be a breakthrough, though, within the aquatic hobby. Because evolution is natural selection or change over time. A lot of Amano shrimp are wild caught, but those who are bred in captivity, there's some tweaking going on where people are attempting to tweak those that are, the keep breeding a colony, and each generation put into water, brackish water that's less brackish by a small, tiny amounts over time. There's a very delicate kind of balance they need to try to put in. However, somebody who's not doing that has claimed they have this miracle has been produced that they have baby Amano shrimp in 100% freshwater aquarium. They're there, they exist. I've looked at the video, they are definitely Amano shrimp, and they're definitely babies. They haven't reported that they're doing anything with the water that would make it brackish, although they did report that they changed some stones, and I've looked up, they called it blue dragon stone, that they put some of that in and took some plants out, put some others in. Heavily planted aquarium, by the way, so this aided any babies to hide, I guess. But it was all fresh water. Yeah, and I was trying to look up the rock, like a dragon stone could release minerals, perhaps, into the water. Not true, actually. It will break down, sure, but it won't put anything that's active into the water. It's inert. So that, I was thinking maybe it just the rocks made it harder water, and something slightly more akin to brackish water, but not. And that wasn't the case. They're definitely not in brackish water because other occupants that require fresh water are still in the tank that are doing well. And underneath this video that this person released, was saying, "Wow, this is a miracle. We have Amano shrimp breeding at a very, very small scale, way smaller than it would be if the babies were released into brackish water and surviving. But they have succeeded in some surviving and growing up to the what would be called the shrimplet stage." Shrimplet just means that they are fully developed in the shrimp form, not larval form, but they're tiny. They're like tiny replicas of the parents. And I looked at this, and I was looking at a video. I was like, "Where's the size comparison?" I couldn't quite tell. And then a neon tetra swam by, and this thing was a tiny bit smaller than a neon tetra. Those who've ever kept neon tetras will know a neon tetra is a very tiny fish, about yay long, maybe so wide, fully grown. Certainly, I think if this is possible to exploit that, like if there is natural selection going on where some will survive without going to brackish water and grow up to be an adult shrimp, because it's the adults that live in fresh water breed, and the eggs hatch and get washed downstream to brackish water, and they grow up and they go back upstream and breed again. That's what happens in nature. However, nature is sticky. It's allows room for differences here and there, and anomalies within genetics that go in favor of species as well. Anomalies that don't get bred out, that don't go in favor of species. In favor of the hobbyist would be that natural selection being exploited. Those that survived and grew up with no influence of brackish water whatsoever could be bred again, and if there's some more success there, you're increasing that trait over time, whatever that is. Maybe it's a combination of genes that are turned on or off creates a combination that enables this. Whatever it is, it's been enabled, and it can be bred in. So then there's a window in the market for people who want to breed these in freshwater, and you could eventually, some years down the line, have Amano shrimp being labeled as freshwater Amano, which would be the ones bred in captivity without the influence of brackish water. Of course, again, you can still do it in captivity to create those differences from freshwater to salt or saline, more salty brackish water. Uh, yeah, and breeders have done that and found, it's a little bit difficult, but it's doable. But those are the really devout, technically minded, perhaps in the technical when it comes to the aquarium and aquatic hobby. However, people who just are um, not so haven't got the time to do all those things, get them surviving in a brackish, then back to freshwater and shuffling things about. But they do have the time to have a nice aquarium and professional enough to keep it going. There's a bit of a window opening up for them if this is a thing. And I do think it is a thing because underneath the video, people were commenting saying, this happened to me as well. And I was saying, yeah, this happened to me. There is a caveat. There's a exception where people may have bought plants from other shops for putting in aquarium plants, whatever plants that you need, and they might be contaminated in terms of not in a bad way, but have the larval or perhaps the tiny baby shrimp already in there in the roots or on resting on the plant, and they get accidentally shipped with it. That's possible. That's how some people end up with snails. Depending on the balance of your tank, the snails can be seen to be invasive, but if they there's a whole other video perhaps I make about snails. They're a good thing in most cases, although they can outcompete a lot of things for nutrients. Prolific breeders, particularly if you put in ramshorn snails, yeah, but that's a good thing as well. Ramshorns are a good barometer for your aquarium, but again, I'll do a separate video on that. So yeah, this was very interesting to me because I did keep Amano shrimp. Amano shrimp are always busy, the same as Neocardina are always busy, and they have character. It's easier to discern male from female as well. Every time I did a bit of a water change, the water would drop in temperature a little bit, but not enough to be too stressful for the occupants. And it would drop and slowly raise back up. Now, that drop, I think, encourages them to breed anyway, because every time I did the water change, they had breeding behavior. Out in the wild, seasonal things happen where snow would melt off the tops of the mountains, come down in the streams where Amano shrimp would be living. They live in small estuaries, streams, flowing water. And the melt would come down, and that would be fresh water that's also relatively colder because the melted snow off the top of the mountains. And they get breeding behavior, and they had breeding behavior every time I did a water change. Looking at the water, it was just relatively soft water, not too hard, and pH, there wasn't anything in it that would, as far as I know, would anything else in that would induce breeding behavior. I think it was just the sudden drop that was just enough to trigger things, then back up again. But I didn't actually successfully breed them, as in the eggs hatching and then you got a Amano shrimp. Although back then there was some things I wasn't doing that I now learned that I should have been doing with more plants the better, but learning how the substrate works to aid the plants as well, and the breakdown of nutrients from waste, the whole cycle. I did know that, but it wasn't so much in the knowledge of the best type of substrate to do this. So we had some plants, not a huge amount, but eventually, tank behind me, I will get a proper stand for that. The table will be used for other things. Piece of the old desk actually, which is now a table. Um, there will be a lot of plants in there, and way more plants than there are other species like shrimp and fish. I may have. I'm definitely gonna get some chili raspberries. They're beautiful. Once they're in the shops, they're still young and they haven't developed the colours yet. And a lot of people will just look at that and think, "What do you want to buy that for? It looks boring." They are beautiful once the colours come through. Um, but they're tiny. They're really small. Chili raspberries, cherry shrimp, maybe a Amano shrimp. Experiment here and there. The cherry shrimp and Amano shrimp will live together okay, fine, just fine. And maybe a small group of pygmy corridorus. They're cute. They're adorable. Bottom dwellers, and they help with a bit of a cleanup. Amano shrimp tend to be prolific algal eaters as well, helping get things cleaned up there. They will leave, unless you got really soft leaved plants, they would tend to leave the plants and go alone. So you got to watch out for that. If any of your plants are very delicate, they might be breaking that apart slightly. Um, Generally, they're going to be eating dead matter, particularly Neocardida shrimp will feed on biofilm. Any rotting leaves, anything dying, they're a good cleanup and just fascinating to watch as well. And yeah, I think if this is can be exploited, people could start advertising this as freshwater version of freshwater bred Amano shrimp, breedable in freshwater at some point. At some point in the natural selection happening naturally, however, human intervention selecting in favor of that natural selection being freshwater only. Those who would survive and grow up freshwater, no touching any salt water or brackish water at all. So there'll be an increase, an exponential additional increase of the natural selection through human influence, which I think is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It benefits the breedability of the Amano shrimp, and it benefits the hobbyist. And Amano shrimp are plentiful, hugely plentiful in the wild. The majority of them bought in the hobby arena from shops are wild caught. If they ever become rare, due to whatever reasons, there could be ways to breed them better in captivity and release them back out into the wild. And those who are just freshwater only may even default back to that routine, back out in the wild. There's many ways to look at this in a positive way. What I don't agree with genetics being changed deliberately and inbreeding is this disgusting ways in which some fish are just so grossly deformed. Gullfish, particularly, as well, comes to mind. There'll be bulbous eyes and fantails that can barely swim properly, swim bladder issues. They suffer. They do suffer more because they struggle to move around more, which causes stress and swim bladder problems, immune system problems. And it's like people think that it looks cute, but it doesn't. It just looks cruel, and the deformity that it doesn't look natural and right, and you can see how the animal's struggling there. People do this with dogs. The French bulldog or pugs. Yeah, pugs can't breathe properly. They have leg issues, spinal issues, eyes popping out. It's gross. All kinds of issues. So yeah, becomes a point where we just gotta leave things alone. But I think the area of influence with the shrimp, with that, it would be a great money earner for some people temporarily, because that's gonna become past so many years if it's successful with people doing that. It'll be just be a thing. It won't be like a rarity anymore. But people value rarities, especially if it's something they've already want to happen anyway. They want to breed these creatures either out of pure interest or monetize it, or maybe some breeders are breeding small creatures as feeders or larger creatures to be fed to. I mean, like it or not, life feeds on life. You're eating plants, and you're an advocate of cruelty against animals because you think, oh, you shouldn't be eating meat. Well, it's just nature. What I'm an advocate against, to be against, is the cruelty. But you got to discern: are they killed him humanely? Where's the cruelty being applied? I buy free range chicken. I don't buy battery chicken. Things like that. There's lines to be drawn, right? Yeah, and there's a whole other video to debate what chickens are healthier and all that. Yeah, battery chicken just means they're in a row in a tiny cage. They eat and shit. There's a pit below them. They eat and they don't even move. Free range, they're allowed to roam around, and they produce better eggs. They really do. Yeah, I know a little bit about it, having to have worked in an egg packing station as a job. That was horrendous work. We didn't see any chicken slaughters or anything like that. I mean, that was kind of, I've seen some videos of that, and it looks cruel, but it's all over so quick that the chicken doesn't know what happened anyway. So yeah, the human body is predisposed to be herbivore. Herbivore? What's the proper word? Omnivorous? Is that it? Herbivores, plants, isn't it? So plant matter as well as animal matter. Plants are living things, by the way. Living creatures. They are. Life feeds on life. That's what life. In order to gain sustenance and this whole food chain. So it doesn't matter what you eat. It's alive. Or was alive at some point, and then processed. Part of it was processed, and so on. Right? Yeah, because activists are like often like extremists. Doesn't mean they're all like it. Yeah. There's quite a lot to be said about that, though. There's a breakthrough, the breeding of the Amano shrimp. Um, where was it? I'm gonna look that up. At that video somewhere. It was YouTube. What do they call it? Green Rocket or something? They called themselves. Something like that. Let's have a look. Breeding Amano shrimp in freshwater. I was just looking for the video. Green Jets World is the name of the video. And then all they did was, they put some text on the video. They weren't speaking on it. They showed some things, and they showed the tiny shrimp and the adult shrimp, and explained what happened. So we'll have a look at that. Hide, go, there we go. Looking for screen. There we go. I just transition this over. So this is their video. Starts off, I think it's 4 minutes long, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. They didn't go into much full-on detail at like the water parameters or what they think is going, why it's possible. I think it's just a number of things. It's all of the above. Very well planted, so nutrients are being taken up that are not necessarily a detriment, because toxins build up that are nutritional to plants but toxic to other occupants. And there's plenty of plants in there, so the water would be nice and balanced, because the plants are doing very well, as you can see. So the people underneath are commenting, I've learned that if the conditions are perfect, it doesn't really matter if there isn't salt in the tank. They will adapt and thrive given the chance. There again, it's natural selection. Give nature a chance and it will select. And that selection will be the adaptation. Evolution, this is very surprising if you could keep track of the shrimp, or if somehow this happened again, please do keep us all updated. Yeah, it is. Looking at this, people will consider this very much a breakthrough. Like this person has said, you have no idea how revolutionary this is. These acclimated Amanos have adapted to freshwater and actually had fry. How awesome is that? You should keep breeding them, so someday we'll have true freshwater Amanos. This person gets it. They understand this is really what I've been talking about, is the more that are bred that have not seen freshwater but successfully survived, not seen brackish water, sorry, but successfully survived anyway, the more that will breed and succeed not seeing brackish water. And that will be an exponential increase. The more that do it, the more that will be the next generation and next generation. Maybe tiny, tiny amounts, but the thing about human nature, we tend to not understand exponentials, like exponential growth, exponential change. That was very evident during COVID as well. One person could infect like 2 or 3 people. Those 2 or 3 people each could affect another 2 or 3 people each. Within one day, you got a few hundred, 500 infected just by coming and going. Hence, the lockdowns were needed until we had enough understanding to catch up with vaccination and precautions and restrictions lifted and natural selection dictated with that. The strains were less dangerous. That's another thing with natural selection. Natural selection dictated that the virus was going to be less dangerous, because there's no way it could keep propagating, because dead people don't walk around and aid the propagation of said virus. So then it became the propagation of that strains that were less dangerous. So it became more akin to a very nasty cold. And a very fast one as well, very quick. I had, for all intents and purposes, it must have been the what they call it, certain strain that was, the name of it escapes me, but I had that, and very rough, but over a very, very short space of time. It just left me with a drainage of the energy, but it was very short lived. Like being hit by a truck, but then quick. Change around, if you will. Anyway, 4 months. This person says 4 months. So those are neon tetras. How to tell a cardinal tetra from a neon is they got more blue on top, and the red is right across the body, and the blue, and you get that colourful line. With the neons, they got this silvery sheen and the neon line as well, and a bit of red at the back. So those are neon tetras. So that's definitely a Amano shrimp. Very somewhat different looking to a Neocardina shrimp. The Neocardina are the ones that I want to keep. Not to be confused with Cardina shrimp, because Neocardinas are far easier than Cardina. Cardina are very fussy with the right parameters, water quality, and so on. So the plants are doing great. They're photosynthesizing, which is generating oxygen. The opposite happens when the lights are out. They produce carbon dioxide, which is the same with plants above the water as well. So that's Amano shrimp. Got some nice red plants as well. I hope to get some plants that maintain a red colour as well once I'm ready to set my tank up. It's been 4 months. They decided to make some changes. So they did make some changes to the environment. But I think this is just general aquascaping. They changed some plants, they changed some rocks. I don't think anything they did there would equate to why these shrimp survived without brackish water. It was just some natural selection that aided them anyway. But also the fact that babies are probably small enough that the larval stage for even a neon tetra to eat. However, this dense vegetation, its foliage is ideal for them to hide in. And this, whatever this is on the left, this green stuff, ideal also if you've got live bearing fish, and that the adults can't get into that dense foliage, but the babies can get right in there. Spot the difference. They put some blue lava dragonstone in, and they put in another plant. Put this plant. Change that plant, I guess. Do something else. Added a few blue dragonstones, cleared some Newton grass, and extended the foreground inward. Replace Microsorium petratus plants. some of these plants have such long, unpronounceable names as well. I need to get educated on certain names for and what the ideal conditions are for certain plants as well. Java fern, basically, they put in. Uh, Buse Philanthra SP. I've got some dwarf mini Philanthra here somewhere. Well, on the desk in a pot, growing, ready to maintain that, ready for when I do get a tank, and I want to maintain my own plants over time, so I don't have to keep buying any if any die, and if they die a lot, I have to research into why a certain plant isn't doing so well. So it was moved to the back, and the wild brownie was moved to the front. Overall sense of space is better. Yeah. So those are definitely. This one would probably be the female, by the way. That this white cream stripe down the back. The males have a narrower, smaller kind of stripe, and they're also much more wider. The females. There's a few other differences as well. Past 2 months, snails and shrimps have been working hard to reproduce. So this is what's known as buried, and these look because it looks like they're carrying a bunch of berries. They're actually the eggs, and they carry those and they waft water over them with these flaps and folds to create a water flow and keeps them clean, and it keeps them oxygenated. And he also uses flaps to aid the swimming as well. This is a picture taken in May. I heard that Amano shrimp can only breed at the junction of freshwater and seawater. I never expected what happened next. So I did get this stage when I was keeping freshwater tanks some years ago and seen this happen, buried, but I had no babies at all. Didn't expect to either. I just bought some because I found them very interesting and had a slight algal problem, and I put them in to aid the cleanup. But they were fascinating, and I thought, what a shame I couldn't breed those. It would have been too much work for me. What I was thinking at the time, but yeah, it's interesting that this person's claimed to have done this successfully, and people in the comments section have claimed to have done the same thing. And others are hopeful that they might be able to because their shrimp have this condition where they got the eggs as well. So that looks tiny, but then there's not much size comparison, but you will see a size comparison in a bit. On June 21st, I took a picture of the baby shrimp with my mobile phone. Was 100% sure that it was not the original shrimp in the tank. This is amazing. For timescale, this was 4 years ago. During, talking about COVID as just the nasty side of COVID. So this one looks far, I know they're closer to the camera, but I don't think they're that much closer. That looks like an adult. This looks like a baby, definitely. So he also photographed the suspected baby Plithon corona. I always thought it could only breed at the junction of freshwater and seawater. I didn't expect it to happen in my tank. So they don't talk about the water parameters, but it couldn't be brackish water anyway because the neon tetras are doing fine. Put them in brackish water, they might turn sick. It might even kill them. The size comparison that this is like very small gravel, not that big, and it looks big against this tiny shrimp. Another one was photographed June 29th. It should not be the previous one. This one is smaller. Again, look at the adult up here, and there's a tiny baby here. The little guy. That's a massive, huge size against a tiny baby. Compare body shape with mother shrimp. You often get these lines complete. They're more like dots, broken lines on the males as well. But you get more defined lines across the female, this red straight lines and individual dots underneath. They don't have such continuation of straight lines on the males. I guess a lot of shrimp have been eaten and it's not easy to survive. Now, there's a size comparison. Those who know how small neon tetras are, they're the size of this, that's a baby. Amano shrimp get to like a few, like an inch, 2 inches maybe long, and bulky, fairly wide. That's tiny. This little shrimp here is a tiny little baby. Too small to see. It's a snail, nearite snail, baby shrimp, and somewhat older, more adult shrimp. A shrimp there as well. Snails, yeah. So these are tiny. They're definitely babies. Um, they did put in plants, but I don't think I'd like to think as well that they weren't um, from plants put in. The other one was photographed on July 3rd, and it looks very similar to the one photographed a few days ago. Yeah, same patterning. Don't know if you could discern male or female at that stage. It's so young, but I'd say most likely it's more of a streamline, not the bulkiness that some of the females have. It's probably a male. June 29th, July 6th. Same day, I photographed another one and confirmed that at least 2 baby shrimp were in the tank at the same time. Okay. So neon tetras are not normally that aggressive. It's just that might even just be curiosity. But if you're small enough against like larval stage that these things would have been, then you're probably food. Uh, but then once they're adults, they're usually very quick and quick enough to dart away anyway. Don't know how long the two cute little shrimps will live. I hope they can grow up. I think once the risk to them is when they're at the larval stage, they for some reason they usually need that brackish water. But once they're at the shrimp stage, it's time for them to return to fresh water. But these have never seen brackish water anyway, so I think they, well, I hope they did okay. That's 4 years ago. They live to 2 to 3 years. Um, was it 1 to 2 years? Something like that. That's also why the breeding rate is so high. Because it's such a short lifespan. Yeah. So thanks for the great crime shots. I had this miracle happen. Also, I thought I was seeing things. At least two Amano babies somehow appeared in my nano tank around a year after I got the adults. I think that the tanks are well planted, maintained, and properly balanced produce these extraordinary results. Nice job. I have read that in the comments that a few others have had this occur as well. My Amano kids are about 3 months old now and are doing well, so I can't see any reason why they would die. Um, and every reason why they would just grow up to be adults. Uh, but if this trait can be bred in, you got an easy to breed in captivity shrimp again, providing the numbers increase. The select those that have succeeded in that environment to breed, and then select those as well. Perhaps bring some new ones into, ideally, or somebody, to keep the gene pool alive, so to speak. Somebody else who successfully bred them in fresh water, have their colony. If they were selling them, bring those into your colony that you've successfully bred in fresh water, then that is another bunch of layers of the exponential growth of that ability to survive only in fresh water. Uh, it's one way to do it. Natural selection is a thing because of all these different adaptations, different changes in the environment, and the most adaptable survive. I'm pretty sure mine were able to breed successfully in full freshwater setup. I had 4 Amanos and 6 cherry shrimps, six cherries, in a heavily planted 10-gallon with soil, wood, almond leaves, and a sponge filter. I now have 20 cherries, and I just noticed some small size clear shrimp with dots and stripes like the larger Amanos. They are way bigger than the baby colorless cherries. Yeah, cherry shrimp are way smaller than Amanos. Uh, Another name of cherry shrimp is the neocardina. Cherry shrimp is just a color variation. It is probably a matter of water parameters that make breeding of these shrimp in freshwater possible. Well, I would have thought so. And the fact that you got all this coverage as well, you got plenty of places to hide away from predators or potential predators. Yeah. I bought 2 small Amano shrimp and put them in my nano tank. Guppies, rasboras, I don't know what that is, sitphodons, and a few others. Everyone breeding, and to my surprise, I have a flock of Amano baby shrimps. I did nothing but feed high quality diet. I think that would be one of the key factors in nutrition as well. High nutrition, but minimal intake. You're making sure if you minimize it, they're not gonna get too polluted in the water parameters. But if you maximize the nutrition while feeding, if you're gonna feed at all, then you're probably going to get something like this. It's another thing to think about: the nutrition, the plants or places to hide, the water quality. That is, if you've got too much nutrition, because like waste, nitrates turn into nitrite and all this is toxic to the occupants, but it's not toxic to the plants. You can think of plants as the occupants as well. But you see that the plants use that as nutrition, but too much nutrition will break things down in the water. You get pollution, and things won't do too good. But making sure when what they are eating is high nutrition, but minimal intake, I think would be a key factor in this. Now, did they spawn? I have no idea, dude, but by the way, what a beautiful tank. Loving it, keep it going. That is amazing. I hope mine do this also. My red cherry shrimp have loads of babies at the moment. I have 10 Amano in them. I have 10 Amano in a tank. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to doing another video. What do you think about this? Do you think maybe they've accidentally introduced these babies from putting plants, they bought plants in a shop and put it in, or do you think they've succeeded? I think they succeeded. There's too much here, other people saying I think this is done. They think they've achieved the same thing, but it's at such a smaller level. It's much more rare than anything more common. Doing it the right way. Some breeders have like to do some tricky things to get Amanos to breed in captivity because they need that brackish water transition. And once the larvae in the brackish water are ready, they then transport them back to the freshwater. But in this case, they haven't needed to do that and they've bred anyway. It's fascinating. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.